He woke up in a motel bathtub full of ice, clutching a note smeared with blood and sweat. Do not trust the mirrors. There were stitches running down his spine, and his own name was the only thing he couldn't remember. No wallet, no phone, just the note, the pain, and the overwhelming sense that someone was watching him, from inside his own reflection. The humming fluorescent lights above flickered like they were on the edge of death, casting a sickly green hue across the mold-streaked bathroom walls. The ice had nearly melted beneath him, his skin pruned and pale, but the cold still held his nerves hostage. He stared at the note again, trying to steady his hands. Do not trust the mirrors. The words were etched in desperation, not written so, much as carved into the page with the intensity of someone clinging to life. He tried to stand, but fell to his knees, the pain in his lower back lighting up like fire. He reached behind and felt the thick ridge of stitches running from the base of his neck halfway down his spine. He gasped. Something had been taken out, or put in. He checked the mirror above the sink, but a spiderweb of cracks distorted his reflection. He leaned closer anyway. His face was bruised, left eye swollen, jaw scraped raw. His irises flickered with confusion, not recognition. He didn't know this face, couldn't remember his own name. But he knew this. Whatever happened, here was wrong, deeply wrong. The room was stripped of identity. No personal items, no clothes besides a pair of soaked jeans slung over the toilet seat. No phone, no wallet. The motel key sat on the counter with a tag labeled 7C. Beside it was a small, silver pillbox, dented, old-fashioned, the kind you might see in a 1950s film. Inside were 3 white pills and a folded piece of paper that simply read, "Take one before the mirror lies." A knock on the door. He froze. Then another knock. More, insistent. Then silence. He crept to the door and looked through the peephole. No one. Just the humming of vending machines and the orange glow of the parking lot. He turned back and saw movement in the bathroom mirror. But he hadn't moved. Heart pounding, he stepped into the bathroom. The reflection showed him standing still. Yes, but then the reflection smiled, just slightly, just enough. He stumbled back, knocking the pillbox off the counter. The pills scattered across the floor. One rolled under the bed. The note's words screamed in his mind. Do not trust the mirrors. A knock came again, this time from the bathroom door. But he was already inside. The knock from inside the bathroom door echoed through his bones like a memory he didn't want to reclaim. He stood frozen, back pressed to the cracked tiles, breath tight in his throat. Then, nothing. No second knock, no voice, just silence. He approached the mirror again, slowly. His reflection was calm now, mirroring his every move with mechanical obedience. But he couldn't forget what he'd seen, the faint smile, like a flicker of autonomy in something that shouldn't have any. He dropped to the floor and retrieved the pillbox. 2 pills left. The third had vanished under the bed, swallowed by darkness. With trembling fingers, he placed one on his tongue and swallowed it dry. He waited. Nothing changed, but something felt different. Like a static charge in the air, or a second heartbeat just out of sync with his own. He searched the room for clues. The jeans yielded a receipt from a gas station 2 hours north, time-stamped at 3:17 a.m. No name, just a pack of cigarettes and a gallon of water. He looked out the window. The parking lot was nearly empty. One sedan, dark blue, parked under a flickering light. Something about it pulled at him. An instinct, or maybe a memory. He pocketed the pillbox and made his way out. The door, walking stiffly, every nerve raw. As he stepped outside, the night air clawed at his skin. The motel office was closed, dark behind metal bars. He approached the sedan, unlocked. Inside, the seats were worn, dashboard dusty, but the glove compartment contained something unexpected. A state ID. His picture. A name, James Adler, 35 years old. Address in Denver, Colorado. He stared at the photo. It was his face, but not. This version was healthier, younger, intact, not bruised, not broken. not afraid. He didn't remember this man. Then he saw the notebook wedged beside the seat. Inside were scribbled notes, sloppy, rushed, pages torn and smudged, sentences circled over and over. They're not just reflections, they're remnants. And again, only the pills keep them dormant. And below that, find Naomi before they do. Naomi. The name dropped into his mind like a stone into deep water. It stirred something. He didn't know who she was, but he felt her. Like she was the reason he was still alive. Then something cold touched the back of his neck. He spun around. No one was there. But in the rearview mirror, he saw himself sitting in the driver's seat. Except he was still standing outside the car. The reflection version of him slowly turned its head toward him and winked. James staggered back, pulse hammering. The pill. Maybe it was wearing off. He slammed the car door and backed away. Then the car engine roared to life on its own. James ran. He didn't look back until he reached the edge of the motel parking lot, hiding behind a dumpster. When he finally dared to peek around the corner, the car was gone, but in its place was a single object, placed neatly where it had been parked, a mirror, framed in scorched wood, facing outward, as if waiting for him to look. James didn't move for minutes. The mirror sat like a sentinel in the lot, framed in blackened wood, cracked down the center, but still unmistakably reflective. It hadn't been there before, and he hadn't seen anyone place it. The motel was utterly still. No traffic, no voices, just that mirror, aimed toward him like a loaded weapon. He turned away. Don't look. That's what the note said. But the temptation itched like something, crawling under his skin. Back in the motel room, he shut the blinds, shoved a chair under the doorknob, and collapsed onto the bed. The mattress sagged like it had a story to tell, soaked in mildew and rot. He felt himself slipping. The pain in his spine flared again, a white-hot pulse like something inside him was growing restless. He needed answers. He needed to remember. And so he risked it. He looked into the room's cracked mirror again. The reflection smiled and spoke. "You're running out of time, James." James gasped, stumbling backward. His own mouth hadn't moved, but the mirror. James grinned, head tilting slightly, eyes gleaming with something far too aware. "You're not supposed to be awake yet," the reflection said. "You broke protocol," James whispered. "Who are you?" "You, and not you." The reflection leaned in. "They opened you up for a reason." The memory hit like a gunshot. Flashes, screaming, a hospital room, a woman's voice. "Don't let them take his memories, please, just leave him something." And then a man in surgical gloves, turning to someone behind him, nodding. "We'll sever the hippocampus first. The identity matrix can be restitched later." He fell to his knees. He'd been cut apart, something done to his mind. Memories sliced, separated, maybe even stored. And now, pieces were bleeding back through. He crawled to the nightstand and opened the drawer. A photo inside, old, torn. James and a woman, Naomi. Her eyes were terrified, and behind them, in the glass of a window, another James. Watching. A scribbled note was tucked behind the photo. "You're not the first version. Don't trust what feels familiar." The mirror. Behind him shimmered faintly as if reacting to the memory. He turned. The reflection was gone, just him now. Normal. Still. But he didn't trust it. That night, he didn't sleep. He pushed the dresser in front of the bathroom door, blocked every reflective surface. But even in the dark, he could feel it, the pull of something behind glass, something that remembered everything he'd forgotten. By morning, the motel room. Phone rang once, then went dead. He picked it up and heard one thing whispered on the other end. "She's still alive, but not for long." The whisper on the phone clung to him like smoke. "She's still alive, but not for long." He didn't recognize the voice. It was genderless, warped like it came through water. But the message was clear. Naomi was real, and someone wanted him to think she wasn't. James shoved the photo into his pocket, grabbed the remaining pill, and left the motel. Dawn barely touched the sky, casting a gray wash over the cracked sidewalks and rusted street signs. The town felt like it had been forgotten, everything too still, too empty. He followed the gas station address from the receipt. It was less than 10 miles away, tucked off an old interstate exit like a wound the map had tried to heal over. The place was deserted, shattered windows, pump hoses cut like severed veins. But inside, near the ice machine, he found it, another mirror. And behind it, carved into the wall, with what looked like fingernails, was a name, Naomi Adler. Below it, "Do not let them take her too." The world tilted. She wasn't a stranger. She was family. His wife? No. The memory didn't sit right. But she was close. Important. He leaned against the wall, nausea rolling through him like surf. He closed his eyes. Flash. A room full of light. Naomi standing in front of a glass wall, sobbing. Flash. A man in a lab coat whispering, "Her integration is failing. If we don't erase him soon, the host will collapse." Flash. The mirror shattering as James lunged for it, screaming, his spine pulsed again, hot now, alive. Something was wrong in his body. Not just memory loss. Not just trauma. Tampering. He stumbled into the back room of the gas station, kicking through boxes, and found a stack of dusty medical files in a locked cabinet. One folder, brittle with age, was labeled Replica Trial. Subject number 4, J.A. James. Adler inside were diagrams, brain scans, notes in tight clinical handwriting. Subject 4 displays persistent identity fragmentation, unstable mirror phase interactions, requires daily dose to suppress cross-reflection bleed. And then a stamped phrase. Remnant leak detected. Initiate reset. He dropped the folder. He wasn't just forgetting things. He was breaking down. The him in the mirror wasn't an illusion. It was a piece of him, something severed, something that wasn't supposed to survive. And Naomi? She'd known. The folder also contained a photo, her, again, but this time she was in a hospital bed, tubes in her arms, eyes glazed, caption, holding stable in mirror state, awaiting final synchronization with subject number 4. She was being used, or merged. His reflection had warned him, "You're not supposed to be awake yet." Because they hadn't finished, James grabbed the last pill and crushed it in his hand. No more sedation. He needed to find Naomi before they turned her into a reflection too. As he walked out of the gas station, a pickup truck pulled onto the lot. Matt. Black government plates. A man stepped out, bald surgical scar across his temple. No badge. He looked directly at James. "You weren't supposed to survive the extraction," he said, then pulled a gun from his coat. James didn't think. He ran. The bullet missed by inches, shattering the windshield of an old station wagon. As he dove behind it, shards of glass rained around him, slicing his arm. Pain flared, but it grounded him, made everything sharper, more real. Another shot, then footsteps. The man wasn't in a hurry. He was trained, calm. Someone used to killing without mess. James grabbed a broken piece of mirror from the ground, blood already pooling in his palm, and then he saw it, his reflection in the shard. Except it wasn't crouching. It was standing, and it mouthed 2 words. Left elbow. He didn't know why he trusted it. He lunged left just as a bullet cracked the concrete where his skull had been. Rolling hard, he smashed through the back door of the gas station and out into a field of overgrown weeds and rusted trailers. The pain in his spine roared like a lit fuse. He stumbled into a tree line, heart jackhammering, vision doubling. His legs were starting to fail. Something in his body was rejecting him, like the reflection was crawling upward from the inside. By the time he collapsed behind a mossy boulder, his hands were shaking so badly he could barely open the pillbox. Empty, crushed, useless. That's when the seizures started. Small at first, twitches in his fingers, like piano keys being pressed by ghosts. Then his jaw clenched so hard he heard his teeth crack. He screamed into his own fists, and then a flood. Memories. Dozens. Hundreds. A childhood bedroom. Naomi laughing under a blanket fort. A teenage argument on a hospital rooftop. Him, at 22, screaming into a two-way mirror. She didn't consent to this. She's my sister. And the doctor's voice again. You gave consent, James. You signed the waiver. You begged us to preserve what was left of her. Naomi, not his wife. His twins, mirror images. That's why they chose them. That's why the experiment had worked, until he tried to stop it. James crawled out of the woods hours later, barely conscious, his shirt soaked in sweat and blood. A truck driver spotted him on the side of the highway and called 911. In the ambulance, everything blurred, except the name he whispered over and over, Naomi, Naomi, Naomi. They took him to St. Mark's Medical Center in Eugene, Oregon. He recognized the name from the folder. As the paramedics wheeled him through the hallway, a nurse whispered to another, "He's not supposed to be here. Room 403 isn't cleared." He heard it. Room 403. He faked unconsciousness, slipped out when no one was looking, and found it. Steel door, restricted access, but the keypad was smeared with fingerprints. He guessed. It opened, and there she was, lying in a hospital bed, eyes open, but glassy, pupils barely moving. She was alive, but only part of her was there, because sitting next to her bed, holding her hand, was himself, smiling gently and whispering into her ear. James stood in the doorway, heart thrashing in his chest, sweat pooling in his torn collarbone. The air inside room 403 was too quiet, like sound itself had been dampened. Naomi lay perfectly still, eyes unfocused. A single monitor beeped beside her, the rhythm too slow, too mechanical, but it was the man at her side, the other him, that shattered what little reality James still clung to. Same face. Same scars, same bloodshot eyes, but this version of James looked at peace. The double turned slowly, as if he'd expected him. There was no surprise, no alarm, just quiet acknowledgement, like seeing your reflection in a dark window at night. "I was wondering when you'd find her," he said. James stepped forward. "Get away from her." "I can't," the other James said, gently brushing Naomi's hair back. "She's part of me now, and part of you. But you already knew that." "Who the hell are you?" James hissed. His voice cracked on the last word. The double smiled. "I'm the part they tried to erase." James blinked. The memories, fractured, buried, repressed, rose again, clearer now. He remembered the last trial. He remembered Naomi seizing on the table, her consciousness too fragmented to hold. He remembered begging them to anchor her in someone, anyone, to preserve what was left. They told him it had to be someone close, and he'd volunteered. "They put her inside you," James whispered. "Didn't they?" The double nodded. "Not all of her, just the emotional core, the memories that made her Naomi." James backed away, bile rising in his throat. "Why would I agree to that?" "Because you loved her more than yourself," the double said softly, "and because you thought you could survive it, but you didn't." James looked at Naomi, the way her hand twitched slightly. The monitor's quiet, artificial rhythm. "You're the mirror," James said. "You're what got cut loose." "No," the double said, standing. "You're the mirror. I'm what stayed intact. You're the fragment that escaped, driven by emotion, by pain, a raw nerve pretending to be whole." James shook his head violently. "No, that's not. Why do you think you've been breaking down?" The double interrupted. "The pills weren't to suppress me. They were to keep you from remembering what you lost, what you gave away." He stepped forward. "You were never meant to wake up, James. You were supposed to fade, quietly. Let the stable version carry on." James stared at Naomi. "She's in there." She was. But it's fading. Her essence, her presence. Without the balance, without the integration, we both lose her. Then let me take her back." The double tilted his head. "You can't take what's already yours. But we can merge, one mind, one self. It's the only way to stabilize her, to bring her back." James felt the heat rising again in his spine, like his body was being torn along a seam stitched by lies. He looked into the double's eyes. They were his, but deeper, sadder, whole. The lights in the room flickered. Behind him, the mirror on the wall rippled like water, and Naomi's lips finally moved. She whispered, "One of you has to die." The words fell from her lips like a curse. "One of you has to die." The room darkened, as if the world had been holding its breath and now refused to exhale. James staggered backward, the echo of her voice ringing in his ears. The monitor beside. Naomi skipped a beat, its rhythm faltering. The double stepped away from her bed, calmly, as though this outcome had always been inevitable. "She's right," he said. "There's not enough space left for both of us. One identity, one consciousness. We can't coexist anymore." James's pulse thundered in his head. This wasn't just about her. It was about him. What had been done to him. What he had done. "You used me," James whispered. "They carved me up, stitched her inside me like some kind of experiment." "She was dying," the double said gently. "You begged them. You don't remember because you chose not to. You couldn't live with it." James looked at Naomi. Again. The slight rise and fall of her chest. The silent war behind her eyes. He remembered now. Her accident. The coma. The doctor's warnings. Irreversible brain damage. He'd screamed, pleaded, signed the forms and shaking hands. Keep her. Alive. I don't care how. And they did. By embedding her soul into his mind. Only his psyche couldn't hold both. His identity fractured. They split him. The grief, the rage, the guilt, all severed off and buried in a mirrored shell. Him. This James, the unstable one, the fugitive, the leftover ghost. James fell to his knees beside her. "Naomi," he whispered. "I'm sorry. I didn't know. I didn't remember." Her eyes moved slightly. She saw him now. "I want to fix this." She blinked once. The double took a step closer. "Then you know what you have to do." He was calm, still. But something in his hand shimmered. A scalpel. He hadn't brought it in. It had appeared, like the room wanted resolution. James stood. Tears ran down his face. "If I do this, will she come back?" "She'll have a chance," the double said, "but only if the noise stops, only if the mind is whole." James took the scalpel. It felt cold but not unfamiliar. He looked at Naomi. He looked at the mirror, then back at the man who was him and wasn't. And he realized he wasn't the reflection. He was the wound. He had escaped into a half-life, chasing broken memories, trying to reclaim something that was never supposed to be his alone. But Naomi deserved more than fragments. She deserved clarity, peace, wholeness. He smiled for the first time. "Thank you," he said softly, and drove the scalpel into his own heart. The double gasped, staggered. Blood bloomed across his shirt, as if he had been the one stabbed. He stumbled to Naomi's side, clutching her hand, and for the first time she turned her head. "James," she whispered. His voice trembled. "I'm here." The mirror behind them shattered into 1,000 shards, each one silent, each one empty, and at last there was only one reflection, fade to black.